A lot of creativity has been happening online. I mean, artists are really going wild with their imaginations. We showed you some of them on the last episode, and now we have some more. Plus, a professor of the arts displays her technique and style with these indigenous works. You enjoyed that and more on this episode of the program. A warm welcome to Art House. I'm Melinda Akinlami.
Our spoken word today is by Evans Ufeli in Lagos. The graveyard of the pandemic. No, don't cluster here at his funeral. Some of you are carriers of the cause of his death. Stretch out your space, flatten the curve, lest you gather here again to bid goodbye to your household. If you had been to the grave of the pandemic, you will tell a real story. You will find the unsettling spirit marauding down purgatory, but murmuring incredulously. Stay away, hang your griefs here. I have walked through the graveyard of the pandemic, and the spirits aren't still. The voices of the dead are calling out the living, and the living stoking her kindred with infirmities. There are no borders anymore between the living and the dead. Let's climb the curve if we agree, pressing our faith against the circumference.
One thing I have ever maintained is non-repetition of exhibited works in a fresh exhibition. When I display about 50 works on any exhibition, that shows I have over 100 works waiting. Be positive at all times. Leave out the negatives.
Before the restriction in movement, we caught up with this female professor and art historian who works on a variety of media, but she chose this one, which shows the beauty of not just creativity, but culture.
Peju Laiwola, a distinguished scholar and one of the leading lights in her gender when talking about the art, reveals her latest project involving the use of fabric to create local designs.
The title of this exhibition is Indigo Reimagined. It focuses on fabric designing that was done in southwestern Nigeria by women in particular, Adire, tie and dye, which was done with different methods. Tying the cloth, known as Adire Oniko, with raffia threads or raffia, using cassava starch to create patterns, as well as using sewing method known as Adire Alabere. But I'm very interested in the way and manner in which dye, indigo dye, was extracted from green leaves. So blue dye was drawn out of green leaves, and so it shows that the people, the local artists and artisans, understood the complexity of this extraction process. They understood the alchemy of materials and the chemistry of the dyes. I'm interested in cloth, not just as a form of body adornment or signification, but I'm also interested in the processes of production and the mundane tools, the templates and the stencils that are used for making these beautiful patterns on cloth. So I argue that the designs and the patterns appear on stencils and templates, and they bear the mark of the artist. And so they are valid as a fabric that also bear the design. So I installed these templates and stencils as art in themselves.
Well, these installations go beyond just exploring the beauty of the Adire material as a fashion item. They open the eyes of the audience to appreciate this fabric as an art form when looking at the process of creating this work of art.
So it also talks about the connection between the various art forms that you find in southwestern Nigeria, such as pottery. Pots were used to hold the vats, the dyes, and because of the porous nature of the earthenware that kept the dyes, it aided the growth of bacteria, which was really very useful in creating the intensity of hue that was when the cloth was dipped into the dye. It also showed the processes of painting that was not just done on cloth, but also on the bodies of people and also on the walls. So indigo as a color appears on cloth. It was used as a palliative to soothe the stomach when you had pains in the stomach. And it was also painted on the walls of houses to ward off plagues, to protect the inhabitants from plagues. And if you look at some of the Yoruba sculptures, you find blue was used to paint the incisions and they appeared on the sculptures. So I'm interested in the alchemy of these materials, the chemistry of it, and how the artists have been able to extract these dyes, produce amazing designs, and developed a large number of classical patterns that we can draw upon as artists.
Indigo dyeing, which has become a tradition, especially in the southwestern part of the country, is often taken for granted. So this professor decided to revisit the ancient technique using new themes and challenging the viewer to see it in a new light.
I'm very much, impressed with what I've seen here today, because it gives me a sense of, richness in terms of the, cultural artifacts that we have in this country. And if you trace the history, all right, of nation Nigeria, you can almost see progression in the works here. If only you can read in between the lines, in between the works. And something that also strikes me is the beautiful collection of the various ideas that she's been able to fuse together to the point that you cannot but stay glued to every component of it. You see, so what we're saying in essence is that if you belong to a particular culture, this reminds you of where you are coming from. It gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of identity.
We know that dyeing began quite early, it's steeped in history. We know that dyeing is steeped in history. The earliest evidence of fabric that was excavated was in the 9th century in Igbo in eastern Nigeria. From the 13th century, the Benin cloth that was hand-woven was a highly prized material that was sought after by Europeans. And by that time, we had a very well-established weaving system or technology in southwestern Nigeria, the weaving of ashoke or ashofi. And you know the prestige fabrics of the Yoruba, etu, alari, and so on.
For this artist, her show, which is a product of intensive research, is a window into the beauty and functions of other indigenous crafts like pottery and metalwork, all linked with dyeing.
For me, the conceptualization is the thing that really takes a lot of time. Once you have your concepts already laid out, then it becomes very easy to actualize the work. Yes, it does take time because I've worked in a variety of media. I've worked in mild steel, I worked in aluminium foil, copper foil, and fabrics as well. This exhibition is about cloth, but it's not principally made of cloth. Only one work in this exhibition is entirely made of cloth. And this work took a lot of time because I cut the squares into very small squares and, did a huge patchwork in several pieces to bring out this idea of a marketplace, Oje Market in Ibadan. But I would say that for me, it's important that we engage a very simple art form, fabric designing, cloth, but taking it out of the domain of a mere craft into a scholarly domain so that it can engage with all the materials which I've used in making the artworks that are here installed, and to open it up to multidisciplinary approaches such that it becomes a more developed art form than we present it sometimes in the marketplace.
This is my culture packaged for me in a very brilliant and profound manner. We can go on to talk about this. I'm so very much encouraged by this. And it's a huge inspiration even for me as a performing artist to begin to look at how can benefit from these sort of works and inspire themselves and be happy about it.
Lace culture and the art of dressing well in Nigeria in the publication African Lace, A History of Trade, Creativity and Fashion in Nigeria, to working with youth in her Center for Art and Craft are just some of the things that prepared Professor Laiwola for her Indigo Reimagined exhibition.